before the election, the president, the actual president, gave us a pledge that he will look into all aspects of the Easter attack and also carry out the recommendations of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. But after coming to power, he has reneged on this promise, and he has not carried out anything of that. Instead, their attitude has been to lay the blame on the Islamic community and some of these extremist fellows who committed suicide and say, that's it, finished, don't ask us any more questions. That way, the government is hiding under the carpet a whole lot of responsibility that is mentioned in the Presidential Commission report on the persons like the former president, the former Inspector General of Police, the former Defense Secretary, the former Chief of Intelligence Services. All these people are allowed to go scot-free. And there are elements emerging which show that these people worked in close harmony with the actual president and his government in order to ensure that this kind of attack helps them to electorally gain by creating a kind of Islamophobia in the country and getting all the other groups to vote for him. So, until proper inquiry is done and investigations are done in a transparent fashion, we cannot accept this simplistic theory, and that is why we have rejected that understanding altogether, and we have said we want something more transparent and more truthful. There are some indications of close contact between the group that committed suicide and the intelligence services of the military, and the persons who are mentioned in this kind of having close contacts are close to the president, actual president, and also the fact that there are many aspects of this, like for example the role of the former president, why he left the country and was not present on the day of the attacks, why 6,000 swords were imported to Sri Lanka and who gave them permission, whether the Ministry of Defense gave permission, and so on. So, there are many questions which are unanswered, and which even the Commission has requested that there be further inquiries, but that also has not happened. So, in that light, we have suspicions that there is a deliberate move to hide the participation of people who are close to the actual president in these attacks, so that they were aimed at gaining more votes and winning the election. The motive is political gain, because in Sri Lanka over a period of time there have been repeated attacks on the Muslims at different places, and the notion created in the country that the Islamic people are going to take over Sri Lanka economically and also with regard to demographic statistics also. This campaign was going on for quite some time, and on top of it there have been after the attacks also, since there was no violence, because probably the attacks were done in such a way that they expected the Christian Catholic communities to react to the Muslim community and thereby create possibly a situation of riots between different races and religions. And since we controlled the situation and we did not allow any violence, 1 week after that there was another repeat performance of the same thing, trying to provoke violence between the Christians and the Muslims by attacking some mosques, and the people who came and attacked the mosques were outsiders, not villagers living in the same place. Then there was another 2 weeks after that, there was a much more organized kind of attack again on the mosques and on Muslim houses and all that. Houses were burnt, some mosques were set on fire, some business premises were set on fire belonging to the Muslims, again in an attempt to provoke violence between the Sinhalese people and the Muslims. And behind that, certain groups who are very close to the actual president. They tried to show that that was in retaliation, but the whole motive was to create trouble. All this happened before the election. So, to create a kind of a situation where electorally it will be advantageous to the actual president at the election, and it happened so that he won the election quite handsomely. So, we see this connection between the possibility that these Easter attacks had something to do with the actual president and his people who were close to him. The attacks took place on 21st April, and then the second attempt came 1 week after that, and the third attempt came 2 weeks after that. So, it's all together within a matter of about a month and a half, and the elections came in November. So, between April and November there was a fairly long time limit. And the funniest thing was that the president himself was an American citizen. He announced publicly that he gave up the American citizenship in order to contest the election, and that he would be the candidate. He announced this just a few days after the Easter attacks, and he came out with the platform that he will ensure justice and truthfulness and better security for the Sri Lankans, because the previous government and its candidates have failed to ensure security, that he will bring security. So, that was the platform on which he won the election. So, therefore, there is a close link between that platform, his campaign, and what happened on the 21st April. We want all these aspects investigated. Otherwise, we are not getting at any truth in this matter. There is no cooperation, because their whole attempt is to say, no, that's not necessary. The people who did it are these Muslim extremists, and there were some others who had some links with them, so we will prosecute them. This whole thing is an action of the Islamic community, so you keep quiet. We will see that these people are brought to book. But the whole thing, the rest of the matters and responsibilities have been hidden, even though the Presidential Commission of Inquiry has recommended that some of these top officials be prosecuted. But they are not interested in doing it. They are saving them, and they are in fact promoting them. Some of them have been promoted in their status, so that it's a real attempt to cover up. In fact, the former Attorney General somewhere in April in May had in an interview he gave had told the journalists concerned that it was a grand conspiracy, the two words he used. So, if he thought that it was a grand conspiracy, then he should be questioned as to what he meant by that and who are the grand conspirators. So, even that has not been done. We have repeatedly asked that his statement be investigated, but nothing has happened, because they probably are all involved in a grand conspiracy. Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is from one of the Rajapaksa brothers, whose elder brother was president earlier during the time of the Sinhala-Tamil the confrontation in the north and east in Sri Lanka. He had been accused that time of gross violation of human rights, disappearance of persons and so on, and there is an investigation happening at the UNHRC in Geneva. So, with that background, but the people in Sri Lanka thought that that was more a kind of an anti-Sri Lanka campaign rather than a matter of justice for anybody who has been killed or made to disappear, or as part of the war and so on, that in a war things like that can happen, so it cannot be attributed to him and so on and so forth. So, he had some kind of a shady background before, but the people in that mood of fear and the feeling that the country needs a strong leader and needs someone who is upright and so on, since he was in the military and he had a kind of a discipline-oriented background, many people voted for him, and therefore he came to power. So, That is the background from which he comes. But now we discover that many of these things are being hidden under the carpet in order to protect his own position. Pope has spoken out on behalf of the Easter victims, because we have been struggling now for 3 years to get at the truth, because we believe that that is connected to the present situation in Sri Lanka. Because this untruthful attitude, this attitude of trying to hide everything under the carpet and to use the judiciary to their own advantage, has worked contrary to their expectations, exactly in the opposite direction. And today there is more trouble in Sri Lanka, not only because of the Easter attack, the injustice done to our people, but also because that same attitude of disinterest in the needs of the people, in the question of justice, in the question of fair play and all that, has affected them in the other areas of life also. So the government has become absolutely ineffective as a result of that. The Pope has very strongly told that the government should do a thorough investigation, allow a thorough investigation in all honesty and sincerity, so that the truth will come out. So we are very happy that the Holy Father said that also, because he went out of the text prepared by the officers there in the Vatican. He closed the text and said this thing, that he wants the government to do justice to the people, the leaders to do that. And the Holy Father has been following us quite closely. From the day the attacks happened, he made several statements on that day. Then I met him again, and then he gave us some help also to look after these people who are victims of this violence. And then he had been following this up all along with our messages, reports that we have sent to him and all that. He had been studying that. Somewhere in March, he wrote a letter to me personally, handwritten, encouraging me in this venture. And then I met him in February this year, and he agreed to join us in this common celebration in Rome for the victims. And we brought this group of 45 victims along with us from Sri Lanka in order to make them meet the Holy Father, because some of them are very, very desperate psychological situation where they have lost all their family and they are all alone at home and they have no hope. So I wanted to give them a little bit of joy and happiness in meeting the Holy Father and all that. The Holy Father, in spite of his difficulties with the walking and all that, he came there, he met everybody. He wanted to walk down the aisle in St. Peter's, a long aisle. He walked down with great difficulty, but with a lot of strength and care for us. So we saw that as a gesture of love and closeness to all of us.